Ethan sat nervously at the corner table of the quiet, candlelit restaurant, his fingers tapping lightly against the polished wood, heart racing with a mixture of excitement and fear. Tonight wasn't just another dinner. It was a carefully planned moment, a chance to show Olivia how much she meant to him after years of busy days, missed chances, and quiet routines that had slowly replaced the spark of their early romance. He kept a small, neatly wrapped box tucked in his coat pocket, a simple gift that carried more meaning than words could express, a token of shared memories and a reminder of the love that had endured despite time and distance. As he waited, Ethan's mind replayed the first time he had met Olivia, her laughter echoing in his memory, the way her eyes had lit up even in the simplest moments, and he realized how much he had missed nights like this, nights where it was just the two of them, a table, soft music, and the unspoken bond they shared. The restaurant's soft jazz filled the space around him, blending with the faint clinking of glasses and quiet murmurs from other tables, creating a serene atmosphere that contrasted with the storm of anticipation in his chest. When Olivia arrived, Ethan's nerves tightened, but the sight of her walking toward him in a simple red dress, her hair falling gracefully over her shoulders, made everything else fade. She smiled at him in a way that made his breath catch, a mix of recognition, warmth, and love that he had longed to see again. She slid into the chair across from him, and the world seemed to slow for a moment, the soft candlelight reflecting in her eyes, highlighting the familiarity and comfort they had built together, yet also the thrill of shared anticipation for what was about to unfold. Ethan cleared his throat, trying to steady his voice as he reached for the small gift in his pocket, feeling the smooth edges of the box and the neat ribbon, each second stretching with tension and hope. He wanted her to feel the thought behind it, the effort, and the reminder that even in the middle of ordinary life, he still noticed, still cherished, and still desired to make her smile. As the waiter poured their wine, Ethan's mind raced with scenarios, how she would react, whether the gift would bring laughter, tears, or a quiet smile. And he realized that it didn't matter what it was. What mattered was the gesture, the intimacy of the moment, and the reaffirmation of their connection. Olivia's curiosity was evident as she glanced at the small box, her fingers brushing it lightly, teasingly, and Ethan felt his heart leap at her interest, at the way she engaged with him in that silent, playful conversation that needed no words. The tension, the excitement, the love, and the years of shared history all mingled in that one fragile moment, a delicate dance of emotions that both thrilled and terrified him, making him realize how much he valued every flicker of her attention, every smile, and every small acknowledgement of their bond. As he waited for her to speak, to react, Ethan's thoughts flickered between past and present, the quiet nights they had shared, the arguments they had survived, the laughter that had softened hard days, and the subtle, enduring affection that had remained despite everything. And he understood that tonight was not just about the gift. It was about them, about remembering, honoring, and celebrating the love that had carried them through the ordinary and extraordinary moments of life. He inhaled deeply, feeling the scent of her perfume as she leaned slightly forward, curious and playful, and in that instant, all the nervousness melted into a tender anticipation, a hope that this simple dinner, this small gesture, would remind them both of the magic that had started their journey together and the quiet promise that, even after years, it still existed, alive in their shared glances, unspoken words, and the warm glow of a candle between them. Ethan finally smiled, a mixture of relief and vulnerability, knowing that whatever happened in the next moments, they were here together, and that alone made the heartbeats, the nerves, and the careful planning all worth it. Because love, he realized, was built in these small, intentional acts that spoke louder than grand declarations. And tonight, with a small box, a candlelit table, and the woman he adored across from him, he hoped to remind both of them that their story was still unfolding, filled with possibility, tenderness, and the quiet, unshakable certainty that they belonged to each other. Ethan watched Olivia's eyes light up as she reached for the small box he had placed carefully on the table, her fingers brushing the smooth paper with curiosity and a hint of playful teasing, and he felt his chest tighten with a mix of nervousness and hope, wondering if she would understand the meaning behind it, the memory and thought he had poured into it over the past weeks, the quiet reminder of the moments they had shared that often went unnoticed in the rush of everyday life. When she asked softly, "What's this?" He could hear the mixture of amusement and warmth in her voice, the familiar lilt that had drawn him to her years ago, and he smiled, leaning slightly forward, trying to convey through his eyes and voice the care and affection behind the gesture as he replied, "Just something I've been saving for tonight," feeling the words carry more weight than the simplicity suggested, knowing that this small act held the power to bring back a flood of memories, laughter, and tender emotions. Olivia's smile grew wider, her gaze softening as she lifted the lid, and Ethan felt a rush of relief and joy when she saw what was inside, a delicate memento that spoke of their shared past, a reminder of the adventures, quiet mornings, and small promises that had built their love over time. And he noticed how her eyes glimmered, reflecting not only surprise but also a deep, unspoken connection, a recognition that they had weathered life's challenges together and still found joy in these simple, meaningful moments. And for a moment, the rest of the world seemed to vanish, leaving only the two of them, the flickering candle between them, and the quiet intimacy of shared history. Olivia's laughter, light and melodic, filled the space, causing Ethan's shoulders to relax and a warmth to spread through him, because her joy was his joy, and the happiness in her eyes reassured him that his efforts, the planning, the anticipation, had all been worth it. And he realized that gifts like these were never about material value, but about the love, attention, and memories they carried, the ability to say without words that he remembered, that he cared, that he still noticed her in ways that mattered deeply. As they sat together, sipping their wine and letting the moment linger, Ethan's thoughts wandered to the quiet times they had spent apart, the missed chances, the arguments, the ordinary days that sometimes threatened to dull the spark, and he felt a renewed appreciation for the resilience of their love, for the way it had endured and adapted, finding new ways to express itself in gestures, glances, and small, thoughtful actions. And he understood that this dinner, this gift, was not just a fleeting moment of happiness, but a bridge back to the connection that had always defined their relationship, a gentle reminder that love needed attention, care, and acknowledgement to thrive. Olivia's eyes met his again, full of warmth and curiosity, and she said softly, almost whispering, "You didn't have to." And Ethan shook his head, his own voice soft but steady as he insisted, "I wanted to. I needed you to know that I remember, that I cherish, that I still see you, truly see you, in every detail, every smile, every little thing that makes you who you are." And he reached across the table, letting their fingers touch lightly over the candlelight, feeling the familiar comfort and thrill of closeness, of connection, of intimacy that had grown stronger with time and patience, yet still held that spark of excitement and newness that made their hearts race. They shared a moment of quiet laughter, exchanging teasing glances and unspoken words, and Ethan noticed the subtle way Olivia's expression softened, the way her shoulders relaxed, the way she seemed to bask in the reassurance of being loved and remembered, and he felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of relief, gratitude, and deep affection. Because moments like this were rare and precious, moments that reminded him that the years together had built not just a life, but a love that could still surprise, delight, and touch them both in profound ways. And he resolved silently to never take these moments for granted, to continue creating them, nurturing them, and letting them be the quiet threads that held their hearts together, even when life became chaotic or busy. As Olivia examined the gift again, turning it slightly in her hands and letting a soft smile linger on her lips, Ethan realized that the simplest gestures often carried the deepest meaning, that love was expressed not only in grand declarations or dramatic surprises, but in these quiet, thoughtful, intentional acts that said, without a single word, "I see you, I remember, I love you." And he felt his heart swell, a gentle ache of happiness and longing that was at once thrilling and comforting, a reminder that their journey together was ongoing, filled with countless small yet powerful moments that could rekindle the spark, strengthen the bond, and remind them both that even after years, love could still surprise, delight, and remind them of all that they had shared and all that was still possible. Ethan watched her closely, noting the subtle changes in her expression, the glimmer of nostalgia, the tenderness in her smile, and he understood that tonight, this gift, this dinner, this shared glance and laughter was more than a simple evening. It was a reaffirmation of their love, a quiet promise to continue noticing each other, cherishing each other, and finding beauty in the ordinary, because sometimes the smallest gestures, wrapped in thoughtfulness and care, could speak louder than any words. And in that realization, Ethan felt both contentment and anticipation, knowing that the night was far from over, that the conversation, the connection, the emotions would continue to unfold, deepening the bond between them and leaving them both with a lingering warmth, a soft glow, and the understanding that love, even after years, could still surprise, touch, and fill their hearts in ways that were unforgettable. Ethan and Olivia sat quietly for a while after the gift, letting the soft candlelight and gentle music wrap around them, the restaurant fading into a blur as their shared memories and emotions took center stage, and Ethan felt a strange mix of relief, warmth, and longing, because seeing her smile and hearing her soft laughter reminded him of everything they had been through together. The arguments, the late nights, the quiet mornings, the moments of vulnerability and trust that had built the foundation of their love, and he realized how much he had missed this kind of intimacy, the kind that required nothing but presence, attention, and the simple act of being together without distractions. As he sipped his wine, Ethan's eyes kept returning to Olivia, noticing the delicate way she held the glass, the subtle shift of her shoulders when she laughed, the warmth in her eyes that seemed to reflect both joy and an unspoken understanding, and he felt a rush of gratitude that despite the years, the routines, and the inevitable challenges of life, they could still find each other in these moments, still connect in ways that transcended words, and he silently promised himself to treasure it, to never let the busyness of life dull this closeness, this awareness of how deeply they belong to each other. Olivia's expression softened as she glanced at the small gift again, a tender smile playing at her lips, and she reached across the table, brushing her hand against Ethan's in a quiet gesture of affection, and he felt an electric thrill mixed with deep comfort, because that small touch carried decades of shared experience, trust, and love. A reassurance that no matter what had happened or what might come, they were still a team, still partners in navigating life together. And he held her hand gently, savoring the warmth and the connection, feeling the quiet beat of her pulse beneath his fingers, a rhythm that matched his own and reminded him that their hearts had been entwined long before this evening and would remain so afterward. He spoke softly, almost hesitant. "I just wanted you to know, you're still my world." And Olivia's eyes glistened as she looked at him, a mixture of surprise, gratitude, and affection crossing her features. And Ethan felt a deep swell of emotion, a mixture of pride, love, and vulnerability. Because saying those words, finally expressing the depth of his feelings in the present moment, was both terrifying and liberating. And he hoped she could feel the sincerity, the intensity, and the enduring nature of his love through every word, every glance, and every subtle gesture. Olivia's fingers tightened around his for a brief second, a wordless affirmation that she understood, that she felt the same, that they were still connected in ways that mattered most. And Ethan felt a wave of relief wash over him, followed by a longing that was sweet and bittersweet all at once, because it reminded him that love required attention, effort, and constant nurturing, that it was never static, and even in moments of bliss, it was a fragile treasure they had to care for every day. The conversation turned lighter for a moment, teasing and playful exchanges filling the gaps, and Ethan marveled at how easily they could slip between deep, heartfelt expression and laughter, how the balance of love, comfort, and humor had always been the glue that held them together, and he silently cherished it, understanding that the strength of their bond wasn't just in grand gestures or dramatic moments, but in these quiet, nuanced exchanges that made each other feel seen, appreciated, and cherished. As they shared a few anecdotes from the past, recalling small adventures and mishaps, Ethan noticed a flicker of wistfulness in Olivia's eyes, a subtle trace of longing for the times when life felt simpler, and he reached across the table, lightly touching her hand, reassuring her through the warmth of his fingers that the past was precious, but the present, with them together here, was just as valuable, and he wanted her to feel it, to recognize that their journey wasn't about missing the old days, but about creating new moments, full of tenderness, love, and quiet joy. The candlelight danced across her features, highlighting the soft curve of her smile, the gentle sparkle in her eyes, and Ethan felt a surge of protective, adoring emotion, realizing how deeply he loved not only her presence but her essence, the way she moved through life with a mix of strength, kindness, and playfulness that continually drew him back to her, even after years of familiarity. He thought about the days they had spent apart physically and emotionally, the challenges of work, responsibilities, and the world that often pulled them in different directions, and he recognized that this evening, this small gesture, the wine, the music, and the touch of hands, was a reaffirmation that despite everything, they could always find each other, that their love had resilience, depth, and a capacity to renew itself in quiet, intimate moments that were theirs alone. Ethan's mind wandered briefly to the future, wondering how many more dinners like this they could create. How many more shared glances, touches, and smiles would build the layers of their connection, and he felt both hope and determination, a commitment to keep cherishing her, to keep noticing the small details that made her laugh, that brought warmth to her heart, and that deepened the emotional intimacy between them, because he understood that love, once built and nurtured, required constant attention to flourish fully. Olivia's gaze met his again, lingering just slightly longer than usual, and Ethan felt the unspoken words between them, the promises, the reassurances, and the depth of emotion that didn't need to be articulated, the knowledge that they were in this together, that they had weathered storms and joys alike, and that tonight was a testament to that bond, a quiet celebration of enduring love, connection, and understanding. As they sat back, holding hands across the table, Ethan felt a mixture of relief, gratitude, and a tender ache of longing that was both exciting and comforting, knowing that the love they shared was alive, evolving, and resilient, and that these moments, small as they might seem to outsiders, were monumental in their significance, carrying the weight of years, memories, and shared dreams. And he vowed silently to continue creating them, nurturing them, and letting their love speak through actions, glances, laughter, and tender gestures, understanding that this, right here, was the essence of a relationship worth treasuring forever, a love that could survive challenges, grow deeper with time, and continue to thrill and comfort both of them in equal measure, leaving a lasting imprint on their hearts that no words alone could capture. Ethan and Olivia lingered at the restaurant as the night deepened, the soft glow of candles reflecting in their eyes and the quiet jazz mingling with the hum of distant conversations, creating an atmosphere that felt suspended in time, intimate and personal, a world just for the two of them, and Ethan felt a thrill mixed with a tender calm, knowing that this evening, this shared meal, and the small gift had opened a door to emotions that had been quietly building over years, emotions of love, longing, gratitude, and a renewed awareness of how deeply they belonged together. Olivia held the small box again, her fingers tracing the ribbon as she smiled softly, a mixture of amusement, warmth, and gentle teasing in her expression, and she looked at him with a playful warning, "Just don't get jealous." And Ethan laughed, feeling a spark of affection and lightheartedness that eased the tension he had carried in anticipation of her reaction. But beneath the playful words, he sensed a depth of emotion, an acknowledgement of their shared history, of the trust, care, and enduring love that had brought them to this point, and he realized how much these quiet, tender moments mattered more than grand gestures or dramatic declarations, because they reminded both of them that love was built in the small, intentional acts that spoke louder than words. As they sipped their wine, Ethan studied her face, noting the softness in her eyes, the curve of her lips when she smiled, the subtle way her fingers lingered on the gift, and he felt a wave of emotion, a mixture of longing and contentment, because seeing her happy, feeling her warmth across the table, and sharing the quiet intimacy of this night reminded him of all the times they had navigated life together, supported each other through challenges, and found joy in the ordinary moments that often went unnoticed but formed the foundation of a deep and lasting love. Olivia's laugh, light and melodic, cut through the stillness of the evening, and Ethan reached for her hand, letting their fingers intertwine naturally, a gesture that spoke volumes without needing explanation. And he felt the reassuring pulse of her presence, the reminder that even after years together, they could still touch each other's hearts with simplicity, sincerity, and quiet devotion, and that their bond was resilient, capable of weathering any storm while still finding beauty in tenderness and connection. They shared stories from their past, recalling adventures, mishaps, and memories both funny and poignant, and Ethan realized that the laughter and warmth they created together were more than entertainment. They were reminders of the love, trust, and history that connected them, the evidence that their life together had been rich with shared experiences, growth, and understanding, and that tonight was not just a celebration of a single moment, but a recognition of the journey they had traveled, the challenges they had faced, and the joy they had discovered in each other's company. Ethan's mind wandered briefly to the years ahead, imagining more dinners, more quiet nights, more gestures of thoughtfulness, and he felt a mixture of hope and determination, a commitment to continue nurturing their love, to keep noticing the small things that made Olivia smile, that brought warmth to her heart, and that reinforced the emotional intimacy they had cultivated over time, because he understood that true love required constant attention, care, and the courage to express vulnerability, gratitude, and affection openly and consistently. Olivia's gaze returned to him, lingering just slightly longer than usual, and in that silent look, Ethan felt the weight and depth of unspoken words, of promises and reassurances that didn't need to be articulated, the understanding that they were partners, friends, and confidants, bound together not just by love, but by the countless moments of connection, laughter, patience, and tenderness that had strengthened their bond over the years, and he felt a surge of gratitude for her presence, her understanding, and her willingness to share this journey with him fully and openly. The night air outside was cool and refreshing as they stepped onto the quiet street, hand in hand, walking side by side, and Ethan felt a sense of completeness, a soft joy that came from knowing that despite the challenges, the routines, and the passing years, they could still create moments that mattered, moments that reminded them of the spark that had first drawn them together, and the deep, enduring love that continued to grow quietly but powerfully in their hearts. As they paused under the soft glow of a streetlight, Olivia glanced at him and smiled, her playful words from earlier lingering in his mind. And Ethan realized that love wasn't just about passion or excitement, it was about consistency, attention, and the courage to show care, affection, and thoughtfulness even in small ways, because it was these gestures, shared glances, laughter, and touches that kept the bond alive, vibrant, and meaningful, allowing them to navigate life's ups and downs while maintaining the emotional intimacy and connection that defined their relationship. He felt the weight of gratitude, joy, and deep affection as they continued walking, knowing that the evening had reaffirmed their love, reminded them of their shared history, and strengthened their connection, leaving both of them with a lingering sense of warmth, anticipation for the future, and the quiet confidence that no matter what came next, they would continue to find each other, celebrate each other, and nurture the love that had endured through time, challenges, and life's complexities. And in that understanding, Ethan and Olivia knew that their journey together was far from over, filled with countless small moments, gestures, and shared experiences that would continue to build the life, love, and intimacy they both cherished, keeping their hearts intertwined, their bond strong, and their connection alive in ways that were beautiful, tender, and unforgettable.